Encore, the self and verbal behavior. Get this, I said to a friend over the phone. Our words directly affect our physiological responses. What's that again? My friend questioned. Listen, these dudes trained people on a hierarchy of made up symbols. They were weird, arbitrary, squiggly marks. For our conversation, I'm going to say these letters are A, B, and C. I continued. It went like this: A is greater to B, and B is less than A. Then they would give the participant this tiny shock, just enough to register some sweat on the participant's fingertip. Then they would show him A with the smallest shock, then B with a little more of a shock. Then the participant went through more training trials. A is greater than B, and B is less than A, without the presence of a shock. Still measuring the sweat, the participant was shown only B, then only A. No shock. The perspiration levels were more significant when they were shown B than when they were shown A. Then it got a little super crazy. Without shocking the participant anymore, the participant was trained on another novel squiggly mark we will call C. The participant was trained on the following: C is greater than A, and C is greater than B. Now, only showing them a C card, the participants' measured perspiration was the highest recorded level without a shock. My friend, also a behavior analyst, was in his own form of shock. It was not measured either, but it was apparent. The study was my launch pad. I will not cite this research, not because it does not exist, but because I butchered my explanation of it. I told my friend, for sure, I am moving to Florida and I'm going to study this stuff in person. Here's a real world, yet hypothetical application of how words affect our physiology. Imagine two elementary kids on the playground. One kid, Timmy, has more body fat than the other. The other kid, John, is a less fat of a kid. John throws a rock at Timmy and calls him fat. The rock thrown at Timmy is like a shock, like a rock shock. And like a shock, it elicits physiological respondents in Timmy's body, such as an elevated heart rate, body sweating, and rapid breathing. Similar occurrences happen throughout Timmy's early life. Other kids call Timmy fat while doing mean shit to him, which also causes Timmy's body to respond similarly to when the rocks were thrown at him. Eventually, the word fat comes to elicit these same responses without any other external shit being done to him. Timmy learns to think of himself as fat. When he thinks of himself as fat, his body reacts in the same way it did when other kids would scare the hell out of Timmy. Yeah, that Sticks and Stones song was wrong. Words can be just as destructive as any manufactured chemical we put in our bodies, maybe more destructive and longer lasting. Words can also be the antidote to destructive behavior. Words can help us solve problems. Words can calm a person's body. Words can help us interact with our environment in ways we never thought were possible. Take this book, for example. My thinking and writing these words have possibly affected my behavior more than any other strategy I have referenced throughout these chapters. The words of my respected family, friends, colleagues have helped to support my chain of writing this book. When I finally made it to graduate school in Florida, I was blessed to meet and study under a true master. He was a master of the principles of behavior. He was a master of mentoring aimless students. He was a master of thinking simple thoughts. He was a master of turning science into art. He was a master of shaping me into a seemingly competent professional. And he was a master of his verbal behavior of his own words. 2 years later, I thought about my professor and his deep understanding of the impact he has had on those around him, the effect he has had on me. He knew that his words were the cues and reinforcers, enabling those in his environment to build and maintain the good chains that we all want to possess. That year, I learned the very same man would build chains throughout his day to better interact with his environment to change his behavior. I was not surprised. This was my professor's way. A brilliant man with a brilliant and simple plan. I thought it was cool that the person who taught me so much about behavior was the very same person who found a way to practice what he so gently preached. It has been a little over 5 years since I finished that program. I would like to think my clients and their families benefit from the work that I do with them. I hope that I teach and instruct in ways that are simple, gentle, and helpful. And although I still have not mastered my own words, I am learning to build new chains that carry words of encouragement and love to the people in my little environment. It's like in The Matrix. Remember that Matrix movie where Neo is back in the real world? He and his posse are about to be attacked by an actual real world machine. Then Neo puts his hand up as if he were still in the Matrix, and he fucking crashes that real machine. Just stopped it in its tracks. Neo had used Matrix powers for the real. Seeing chains in the world is almost like seeing the Matrix code, the ones and zeros trickling up the Matrix monitor. Not quite the same, but almost. Manipulating your environment to affect the behavior you want to see in your future self is the Neo and Morpheus type wizardry they wield inside the Matrix. But using words, thoughts, spoken or written, with precision to build change for yourself and for others in your life, now that, my friend, is a real world, chosen one style of mastery over behavior. The kind you will only learn in Florida.